Ladies and gentlemen, I present Karen to you.
Thank you. Now this one, so before it all changed, before our whole world changed, this was meant to be an interactive one where we would be looking at different challenges. In my head, it looks like we would be looking at different challenges and workshopping in small groups, and I'd come to you in small groups, and then we'd bring it all back, learning the stuff from bringing in the stuff from the keynote. Well, that's all different. So that's all changed. So the way I'm thinking it'll look is more like a Q&A. And I expect that even though these are questions from individuals, they have themes, and they have themes. I do a lot of work with early learning centres. They have themes that I hear all the time. So hopefully you'll get something from all of it. So if you want to write in the chat, if there's questions, or if you want to contribute. So I'm imagining this to be less formal and more interactive, and I'm here for you. So just, I want it to be quite interactive. So the first question, I've got a list of questions here. The first one I've got is around peer relationships and kids being a bit mean and putting pressure on other kids to do things. If you don't do this, I won't be your friend, or I'm not your friend anymore, or I don't want to be your friend. So mean on purpose behaviour, and it is understandably really hurtful to kids who are on the end of that. So we're talking 3 to 5 year olds. Now, at 3 to 5, they're still learning, especially at 3, they don't have... they still think how they think is how everybody thinks. So if I'm thinking that I'm happy to keep playing with this toy, you'll be thinking that it's okay for me to keep playing with this toy. If I'm thinking that that this isn't how the game should be played, then you'll be thinking this is how the game shouldn't be played. You'll agree with me. So they're very egocentric. They see the world through their own eyes. And this is really important for their development, because we want them to focus on themselves and where they are in the world and their own discovery, and then they branch out from there. So this is a time where they are learning empathy. The way they learn empathy is through relationships with us. So one of the things to do, and remembering that their rational brain isn't online yet. So their capacity to think rationally and logically doesn't really come online for development till they're about 7 or 8. So by then they're at school. Until then, they're driven by emotion. The emotional brain is under the spotlight from about age 2 to 7. So they are driven by emotion and impulse. So as soon as I get a feeling, and I'll act on it as though I deserve to. And that's just how they are. It seems like and it is that mean behaviour, but it's not because they're mean kids. It's because they're not there yet. So what we want to do along the way is nurture empathy. And one of the ways we do this is, it's called stepping back. So what we want to do is have conversations, and remembering that this is something that will grow. So we just keep tending to it, and adding to it. So it's conversations like, what would it be like? I'm wondering what it would be like if someone said to you that the only way they would be your friend is if you did that. What would that be like for you? Do it in a sing-songy voice while you do it, because we want them to feel safe enough to be able to engage. If we get too firm and strict, we lose them, the brain shuts down. We still want them to feel the strength of us. So and remember, that conversation cannot happen in the midst of the battle. It can't happen, because when they're in the middle of that fight, any capacity to access that reasoned thinking logical brain is gone, because that brain is shut down. When they're driven by emotion, there is we just can't reach them. So when it's happening, we have to connect first. And then once the heat has gone out of the room, then we have the conversation. I'm wondering what that would be like. What do you think it was like for your friend when you heard that? And they might say, I don't know. And then you go, and then you say things like, I'm wondering what it would be like for you if someone said this to you. I'm thinking it might be pretty hurtful. And then we have to treat them as the kids we want them to be. I know you're not mean, and I know you wouldn't hurt people on purpose. And I know you can actually be a really good friend. So how can we put this right? Do you need my help? And that's where we come in with the support. They do need to feel our strength. So we do need to assume a leadership presence in that, which is, and it might be in the midst of it all, it might be, I am not going to let you say hurtful things. Come with me. You're coming with me. And then you give them big love, and we want them to feel safe. We want to bring them back to safety. I don't think we should ever force kids to say sorry, because they don't know what sorry is. And sorry is such an abstract, it's an abstract term. So the words I use are, how can we put this right? How can we put it right? They might say, if I say sorry, or they might say, if they've taken something and that's caused upset, we might say, it might be sharing something special, or helping out with something. So we want to nurture that. But the idea is to get them to see it from another angle. You can also use puppets and toys with it. So it's projection. Kids can sometimes have trouble putting themselves in that position, but if they can project it onto a toy or a puppet, it's safer, because it's actually not me being mean, it's the toy being mean. So that might look like, so if these two toys were playing and one toy said to the other toy, I don't like you very much, what do you think this toy would be thinking, feeling? What do you think? Do you think that makes this toy mean? What would make a toy do that? What would make this toy do that? So you create the situation, but external to themselves. It's easier for them to, it can be easier for them to engage with it. Something else which can be trickier for younger kids, but it's asking them to look at what happened as though it was a movie. And what we're doing is asking them to step back. It's called stepping back. So if you watched what just happened and it was on TV, can you tell me what that would look like? And get the story, get the words going. When they talk about their feelings, they're connecting the right and left sides of the brain. So they're going to eventually, and that's what we want, because they're going to be able to eventually make more sense of a situation and how they feel. We also need to validate. They don't need to be friends with everybody, but they need to be kind. So we can say, sometimes it's annoying, isn't it, when you have to share? Or sometimes sometimes you just want people to do things your way. I get that. And what do you think that's like for whoever? So we go that way. So the more we can stay in connection with them, the more influence we'll have. So what we need to do is invite that influence in, and we do it through connection. So it's not about punishing. It's not about any of that. Anything that drives shame will lose them. And what we need to do is think of it more as helping rather than punishing them. We're coaching them along. They're not meant to get this right. They're not meant to know what to do. And they do it by watching us. So sometimes I get asked to do things and I don't want to do them. What do you think I should say? What do you think would be okay? So it's just taking them one step back before they look at it. I'm just looking at the comments. Yes, so that's perfect. If you can coach that, it's okay to say, I don't want to play with you right now. Even if we can say, but I'll play with you later. So it's not what we need to do is nurture the idea that it's about what they do, not about who they are. So you can say to your friend, I don't want to do this with you, but we don't want to be mean to them as a person. For the kids who are on the end of it, who are getting told, I talk about a force field. So I actually wrote a book, because I know how, I wrote a book about it. And it's about when you can't stop people saying things. You can't stop people saying what they say. But imagine that you've got a force field around you. And when you put up your force field, you can still hear everything and see everything. But the words, the mean words or the words that can hurt, they hit your force field and they bounce off, or they turn into kites, or they turn into balloons. Get them to draw it. They turn into glitter, but they don't hurt you. They don't hurt you because you are so strong and you are so powerful, and the words won't hurt you. You might feel sad. You might feel sad, but they don't have to. They don't have to hurt you in that way. So we just want to nurture that, because we can't change that kids are going to be mean and that kids are going to say are going to say mean things. So in the heat of battle, it's managing a situation. The other thing we need to do is take them out of the environment. So when there's a fight happening, there's too much stimulation. It's all coming up through the brainstem. When that happens, there is no capacity to think clearly. And there's no capacity to be kind or be when they're overstimulated, when they're cooked, when they're done. So what we want to do is, if we can, take them out of the environment, take them outside. Nature is calming. Take them for a walk. Rhythm is calming for the emotional brain. Once we've got that brain back to calm, then we can do the work. What do you think that was like? How can you put this right? Do you need my help? So we want to coach them along. Oh, these kids who think they need to get it all right. We did cover this, I think, a little bit in the last session. It seems to be, there's a really interesting research study done with babies, and they looked at it, and they did boy babies and girl babies. And the boy babies, and it was done a long time ago, when they pulled a string, there was a face would appear. So they taught the babies very quickly that when they pull a string, a face appears on the screen. Babies love faces. It's how they attach. They love faces. Now, what happened is, when the babies learnt after a couple of minutes that the pulling the string made the face appear, they disconnected it so that the face stopped appearing. Well, the boys kept pulling to make it happen. They kept pulling, and then they'd use their feet and they'd use their other hand. And these were babies. When they did it with the girls, and not all the boys, but I think it was 80% of them, 80%, when they did it to the girls would get really upset and cry and look for the adult in the room to come and help them. Now, that's not good or bad. It is. What it means is, we've got girls who are good at kids who do that. So boys do it too, but more girls do it. Kids who tend to give up easier might be better at asking for help. They might be better at the relational stuff. The kids who will keep going and trying, they're prepared to take risks, because even if it doesn't work, I'm going to keep finding a way until it doesn't, but they're less likely to ask for help. So that's what we find. So what we want to do is really not necessarily encourage mistakes, but the learning about mistakes. There's a part of the brain that only gets activated when we make a mistake. We want that to happen. So one of the things that we need to say to kids is, and with gratitude practices, often it's tell me 3 things you like about yourself, or 3 things you did well. We need to include in that, like, what is something you learnt today from a mistake you made? So we need to build that, just that openness to making mistakes. And we talk about mistakes and learning in the same breath. And the other way to describe it is, we want to start nurturing a growth mindset in children, which is that you've got parts of your brain that are really strong, like parts of your body. Your brain's just another muscle. And there are parts of your brain that need some exercising to work it out. All a mistake means, and if it's not the way you want it, all that means is that part of your brain needs more exercise. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to give it more exercise, because that's a really great thing. This is an opportunity to get it really strong. Just in the same way, not everybody is a fast runner and they need to practice getting fast, or not everybody, but they might be a really great jumper, or they might be really good at painting or block work or in the sandpit. We're not good at everything. And when we make a mistake, it's a really great thing, because of what it's telling us is what we need to do to exercise that part of our brain. So I want you to make as many mistakes as you need to make to get it right. And we can invite that in by saying, right, I want you to make the messiest, ugliest painting you possibly can. Make it messy. Or I want you to build the wobbliest block tower and till it falls down. I want it to fall down. So we want to invite that risk taking and mistake making and talk about mistakes and learning in the same thing. Now that doesn't mean they're not going to get frustrated still, but whenever there's a mistake, we say, that's a great thing. What have you learned? You've learned that. And if there is no obvious learning, you've learned that this is your brain saying to you, I need you to work me a bit harder. I need you to stretch me a bit more. That doesn't mean we don't do it. And brains get stronger by using them. And I do think it's helpful to talk to kids about how they strengthen their brain. So in your brain are lots of brain cells called neurons. And this is a conversation we can have with little kids. You can draw them like bubbles. And those brain cells in your brain at the moment, they are looking to make you good at things, and they're looking to learn. They're so ready to learn. But do you know how brain cells learn? Every time you do something, those brain cells connect and they form a pathway. The more you do that thing, the stronger that pathway gets. And when a pathway is really strong, then it's automatic. You don't even think about it. So the first time you walked, when you were born, you weren't able to walk because you didn't have very strong walking pathways in your brain. But imagine if you never tried to walk again. Imagine that. What you did was you were really brave and you kept getting up and falling and getting up and falling. And every time you fell and got back up, your muscles got stronger every time and your brain got stronger until eventually that pathway became really strong. And now you walk and it's automatic. You don't go, oh, I wonder if I can walk. You just walk because that part of your brain is so strong. Same as riding a bike or throwing a ball or climbing on the whatever they're doing. It's all the same. Talking. Imagine if the first time you said a word wrong, you never talked again. We don't want to do that. We want to make your brain really strong, and you make it strong by doing. So we want to encourage them towards that. And all the mistake is just your brain saying, hey, I just need some more stretching in this area. And in the same way, thoughts make pathways too. So you don't want to be thinking that you can't do it, because every time you go, oh, I can't do it, it's too hard, you're actually forming a pathway until eventually when that pathway is strong, that thought is automatic. So you won't even question it. You'll just be going, well, I can't do it because I'm just not very good at it. Because if that pathway is strong, it's going to feel like the truth. It's not the truth at all. It's just that there's a strong pathway, but we can always build new pathways. That's the really amazing thing about your brain, is you can change it all the time. We can do that. Now, how to diffuse? Are there any questions about that? Just chime in anytime. How to diffuse escalations of behavior. Now, the only way to do that, given that you've got two brains there that are being driven by emotion and instinct and impulse, there are no thinking brains. So the only thing you can do is, if you can, you have to take them away from the situation or co-regulate. Let them borrow your brain. So that might just start with you being calm. So we talked about it in the anxiety talk. Co-regulation is really important, and it depends what the situation is, but their de-escalation will start with you, and it will start with your calm and you bringing calm to it. So when we come into a situation, and we all do it with our own kids at least, you come in and they're fighting and you come in with a raised voice, and because you're at the end of yourself and it's the end of the day, and it's only going to make it worse, because what we've got is all these brains, all these amygdala. Whenever there's heightened emotion and heightened challenging behavior, it's usually because the impulsive amygdala is in charge, and they'll recruit others. So what we need to do is just come in with calm, and if you can, pull them away from the situation. You can't reason with them. in that moment. So it's tempting to say, I need you to make a different choice, or what do you think is going to happen if you do this? The brain, they're not listening. They just can't hear you. So in that moment, we need to take one of them away and connect, and then bring calm. There is no a easy way to do that. The work with behavior and feelings actually happens in calm time. So that's when we bring a strategy. So when they're calm, then we can say things like, you know, it's annoying sometimes when you have to share. I understand that. And, or it's annoying when someone's playing with something you want to play with. So we validate. What would be a better way to do it? What can we do for next time? And maybe one of the things is, if you need my help with the words, come and get me and I will help you with the words. Or if you can coach them with the words, and remembering that they're learning, it's going to take time. So just because someone tells you how to swing a tennis racket doesn't mean you're going to go out there and win Wimbledon. Just because we have these conversations with them doesn't mean they're going to go out and then tomorrow they're going to go, would you please let me play with that toy because I was having my eye on it. And then when that kid says no, they're going to go, okay, no worries, I'll come back later. It doesn't happen that way. There might be an escalation. But the work happens in calm times. That's when we work out the plan. But we do have to validate, because we, even with really, with behavior that is terrible, there is a really valid need under it. There always is when you strip it back. Whether it's tired, whether it's a need for power and influence, whether it's a need for rest or food, or a need to feel safe. There is always, or a need to feel included, a need for connection. There is always a valid need under it. Little people, actually big people do too, have terrible ways. When we're exhausted and when we have nothing left, we go about getting our needs met often in terrible ways. So they're no different to us. If you've had a big day and it hasn't been a great day, and you come home and there's a mess and they're asking you what's for dinner, sometimes you can just lose your mind because it's just too much. The last thing you need is someone coming in going, no, that is not how we talk to each other. You need to go to your room and you need to calm down. And tonight you are not coming and watching TV with us. You are not having wine. No wine for you tonight because you have not done the way we do things here. That is not what you need. That's only going to send you spare. What you need is someone coming in going, have you had a terrible day? Do you want to come and sit? Do you want to talk about it? That's what we need. They need the same thing. They're no different to us. Doesn't mean we're approving of their behavior, but that has to happen in the calm times, that talk about what not to do. Now, dealing with big feelings, this is always a really, I've just missed, I'll do separation, but dealing with big feelings. So kids are driven by the feeling brain. And what happens is all the information, we talked about this in the brain one, but the brain develops from the back to the front. The first part of the brain to develop is the primal brain, and that is where everything, all the information from the environment comes: smell, sound, sight, hear, everything comes into there. From there it is sent to the parts of the brain it needs to go to. When there's big feelings involved, the problem with young kids is the information can't be sent to the thinking brain because the pathways aren't there yet. So what happens is they have all this information and this stimulation, and it's just a great big feeling, and it'll come out as a great big feeling because there is no capacity yet for them to, the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain which is important for self-control and emotional regulation. So the only way that they learn to regulate is by co-regulating with us. Kids who don't have a connection or a relationship with a responsive, loving adult will forever have trouble regulating their emotions, because the way those pathways are built are with another adult. So every time there's a big feeling and you bring them back to calm by co-regulating, you're building that self-regulation pathway. So all the good things that kids, all the good things that go into making decent humans, resilience, independence, emotional regulation, it starts in relationship, and it all happens in relationship. So co-regulation is just your calm, you being a calm, strong, steady presence so they can catch that. It seems like big feelings are a push away, and it seems like we have to, the last thing we want to do is punish the emotion out of them. They need to experience big feelings in order to learn how to manage big feelings. If we don't make space for big feelings to come out, they will never learn how to manage it, because they will have no opportunity to build those regulation pathways. So in the same way, when you're building muscle, when you're building body muscle, the growth happens in the stretch. It happens when you go, when it happens in the stretch. It's that lifting of the weight. That's where the growth happens. It doesn't happen when you're lifting easy weights. It doesn't happen when you put the weight down. It happens when you're picking up, when you're doing the stretch. Same with regulation, with emotional regulation. The growth happens in that space between big feelings and calm. So it's an important part of their development. We need to make space for that emotion. That it's not the emotion that's the problem, it's the way they deal with it. And again, that work has to happen in calm, because all we can do when there's big feelings is ride the wave. So those big feelings, as long as they're safe and not in any danger, those big feelings won't hurt them. Then they're not going to hurt them. We can want to, there's a big drive, of course, to want to stop it. It's horrible watching a child in distress, but we don't need to. We don't need to. So what we need to do first is be that strong, loving presence. So it's, if we do the strong, steady breathing, if we are strong and steady and I'm right here, do you want to hold my hand? Do you need a cuddle? Do you want to come and sit with me? Do you want to come for a walk with me? It's almost the opposite to what we've been taught. So even when I went through my training, it was all about consequences and punishments and time out. We don't do that, because if kids are in big emotion, it's already a brain that's registered threat, or there's a need. Usually it's a need for a connection, a need for relationship. So we have to give it to them, and anything that puts them into timeout or excludes them is exactly what they don't need in that moment. They need us. And they need us because they need to borrow our brain. They need to borrow our thinking brain so that they can start to build those pathways. So we still need to assume a presence of leadership, because it's the behavior that happens when they're in big feeling that causes the problem. But we also need to remember that it's all an important part of strengthening that emotional brain. Anytime we can get there first, and it's really hard because we can't always, but if you can anticipate what the need might be. So can you see something happening, and this is a child who has a need for power and influence, so whenever they try to have power and influence, they do it all the wrong way, and it all ends up in big feelings and big behavior. If you can get them first and maybe give them an opportunity to have power and influence, it's a valid need. We all need some power and influence. So it might look like, do you want to give them a choice with what to do? And it would depend on your routine, but would you like to do this first or that first? What do you think we should do? Would you like to choose the first story that we read, or something like that, if we can do that and find another way to meet it? Often we don't say attention seeking, we say attention needing. So is this a child who is about to fall apart because they need that loving connection with us? So we give it. And often big feelings come from that. So we co-regulate, we stay close to them, even if it's a child who doesn't want to, who's saying, I just go away, I hate you, stay in connection distance from them. That's okay, I'm right here. I'm right here. When you're ready, I'm right here. You let me know. If you need my help, you let me know. Touch, if they let you touch them. The amygdala, which is where big feelings come from, have receptors for oxytocin, and as soon as there's touch, that releases oxytocin and calms the amygdala. It's why we pick up babies when they're upset. So you're built for this. It's wired into us. It's that touch. Rubbing them on the back. I didn't get to show it, but it's, if you do that, that space in the middle of their back activates a nerve which activates the calming nervous system. Has to be a fairly firmish rub though. Physical closeness, walking, any rhythm can help calm an anxious brain. And then when we get them physically calm, then we move into the validation. That was big, wasn't it? You were really angry about what happened then, or it was annoying for you to have to share, wasn't it? And we name their emotions. So we're also widening their emotional vocabulary we're not, the focus has to stay on their behavior, not who they are. And that's what shame is, when we start to focus on who they are. When it's anything that makes them a bad person rather than their decisions or what they've done. Another thing to do, which I've got here, have you heard of glitter jars? So glitter jars are a way to help kids understand what happens when they're in big feelings. So the way to explain it is you have a feeling brain and a thinking brain, and they need to work together. They need to work together. But sometimes your feeling brain will take over. And when your feeling brain takes over, your thinking brain can't work very well. It's really hard to think clearly. So one of the ways to calm your feeling brain and bring your thinking brain back is with strong, steady breathing. But you do this in calm. You have to do this in calm. A glitter jar is a way to show them what happens in their brain. So what it is, just a jar. Can you see that? So it's a jar with warmish water when you do it. And I've had this jar for years, and dollops of glitter glue, right? And what you say to them is, imagine that glitter is your thoughts. When you have big feelings, when you're getting really upset or angry, look at what happens to your thoughts. They go all over the, oh, I've got stars in there too. They go all over the place, and it's really hard to see clearly. You can't see anything. That's what happens in your thinking brain. You can't see clearly. But watch what happens if you stay calm and still for a few minutes with strong, steady breathing. And as they do this, this is actually an act of mindfulness. Watch what happens. See how your thoughts start to settle, and you can see clearly again. You can think clearly and make better decisions. So what we have to do when your glitter jar, when your glitter, your brain is all over the place, what we need to do is take some strong, steady breaths and wait for the glitter to settle, wait for your thoughts to settle, so then you can make some good decisions and get them to make their own glitter jars. And when they're upset, even the act of watching that is calming. We just need them to be still. And it takes time. It takes time. So we validate, we co-regulate, and we bring them back. Knowing that even as adults, we're not always in charge of our feeling brain, and we lose our thinking brain sometimes too. So we can't expect our young ones to do it all the time, but we're giving them the language that we need. Now, anxiety at separation, we did talk about that a lot this morning. So what I hope you got from this morning is just knowing that when you encourage that quick, strong separation, you're doing the right thing. It's the right thing to do. And remembering, parents will be looking to you for signs of safety. Kids will be looking to parents, parents will be looking to you. And so that's where it's really important to come in with a really strong, I need you to trust me. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to love your child all day, and I'm not going to let anything happen to them. Now, when you've got a child or a parent who's really having difficulty separating, we can take small steps towards it. Now, the really important thing that for parents to understand is this won't get better on its own without some hard work. Because once the amygdala learns that things are unsafe, it will hang on to that. We've got a really strong pathway around, we've got a really strong pathway around avoiding separation. I'm looking at a question here. Now there's one about how not to project, how to help parents not project their anxiety about COVID, and another one about, which I'll get to, and another one about kids who are hurting themselves. So it's all the same. It's all the same. What we need to do is assume a leadership presence and say things like, I'm not going to let you hurt yourself. I know, in a sing-songy voice, loving them big, I know this is really tough for you and I'm not going to let you hurt yourself. So if you need to hold them or take them for a walk or whatever you need to do, if they're hurting themselves with something, take it away. But all the time in that calm, sing-songy voice, it's the same thing. And what we need to do is make sure the parents leave quickly, because it's like torture otherwise. As long as the parent is there, the amygdala is going to hold out hope that it can do something to stop the actual point of separation. It's actually not being away from the parent that kids are anxious about. It's that point of separation, because once the parents go, the brain will rest quite quickly and then they can get on with their day. But you've got to bring that separation on. So the longer parents stay, the more the child is staying in that fight or flight state, and and then it escalates, and then it's just harder. So it's a conversation that has to happen with parents as well. Now, it might look like inching towards it slowly. I was working with a girl last year who was 12, and her mum had to be at school all day and had to do 15-minute check-ins to the classroom so she could physically check in. So the thing to say to parents is, this is the time to stop this, and this is the time for us to do something differently. And I know we can make a difference. I know we can do this, and it's going to be hard. We also have to say to parents, this will probably get worse before it gets better. It'll probably get worse. But that worse is a sign of progress. It's a sign that we're giving the amygdala a shake and saying, hey, things are about to change here. But to parents, we say, I need you to trust me. So can we work out a plan that we can stick to? It might look like staying for, the shorter the better, but it might look like staying for 10 minutes and then go. And when that go time comes, you go. So you give them a love, you give them a cuddle, and you say goodbye and direct them to connection, to the point of connection. So kids will be focused on the separation. We focus them on the connection, which is, I can't wait to see you this afternoon. I can't wait to hear all about your day, and go, but you've got to go. And you can fall apart in the car if you want to, but you have to be, your child is looking to you for signs of safety. And then when 10 minutes is okay, let's go to 5 minutes. And then let's go to a 3-minute drop off. Maybe the parent reads a story and then they go. So work out a plan with the parent that the parent will stick to, because the work actually isn't with the child, it's with the parent. And we say to the parents, the other way to present it is, how would you like your child to be by the end of the year? What would you like them to be doing? Would you like them to be able to come to kindy or daycare without getting upset? And they'll go, well, of course I do. And then you say, okay, so it's not going to resolve itself on its own without us taking control first. But as long as it is an option for you to stay, and as long as it is an option for them to avoid separation, they're going to take it. One of the ways I describe it is taking ice cream off the table. So let's say you want your kids to, let's say you want your kids to stop choosing ice cream for dessert, and you want them to choose an apple instead. So you say to them, we're going to do things a bit differently. I want you to have the apple for dessert. Look, I'll still put the ice cream on the table, but I'd really like you to choose the apple. What child is going to choose the apple? No child's going to choose the apple. So you keep putting them there, and you keep pleading with that child to please choose the apple. As long as the ice cream is there, they are not going to. Why don't we take the ice cream off the table? Why won't parents take the ice cream? Because we know there's going to be an almighty battle. And it's going to be 9 o'clock before anyone settles down, because it's going to be screaming and it's going to be awful. And then tomorrow night it's going to get worse. We have to go first. Parents, when it comes to being brave, parents have to go first. They have to take the ice cream off the table. So take avoidance off the table as an option. And it's too hard. We're putting too much in the hands of these children, to waiting for them to say, okay, that's okay, you can go now, I'll be fine. that's for parents to do. We need the parents to do that. We need the parents to make the hard decision, take the ice cream off the table so kids can adjust and rest and get used to it. So we say, how do you want your child to be at the end of the year? Okay, so you don't want them to be upset at drop off. What do you need to do more of or less of for that to happen? Let's work back, and you reverse engineer it. Because this is not going to go away on its own, because the brain has wired around this and you have really strong pathways around it. So let's wire around brave behavior. And the other thing that's happening is when you stay, your child is catching your anxiety. You know that your child doesn't, your child doesn't want to be upset like this. They don't want the drop-offs to look like this. And in them, there's a part of them that knows they can do this. But when you act as though they can't cope, you are aligning yourself with the fear, and you need to align yourself with that part of them that really believes they can do it. It sends a very subtle message that they probably can't cope and you need to stay. They can do this. They can be anxious and do hard things. We know that, but parents have to go first. So parents have to go first for their kids. We'll have to go first for parents. And it's like, okay, this is how it's going to be. So can we have a plan, and we need to stick to it? It's 5 minutes and then go. And and maybe you need to call the parents. I'll call you in an hour and tell you how things are going, or I'll call you in half an hour and tell you how things are going. But I promise you, this is the right thing to do. I know it with everything in me. We need to be their brave. How do we support how do we support a positive disposition towards learning in a school setting? So can whoever asked that unmic, and because I just want to understand more about what you mean. So do you mean more about a love of learning, or type in? I'm assuming it's about a love of learning or a readiness to learn. Okay.
Sorry, Karen, I can't see the question you're referring to. Is it just me?
Oh, I think it's privately. That's fine.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So, readiness to learn. Okay, there it is. So what we're doing, that's about a growth mindset. We want to nurture a growth mindset. So there's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A growth mindset is brains can change and I can learn, and mistakes are all part of learning. A fixed mindset is, if I can't do it, it's because I'm not smart enough, strong enough, fast enough, good enough. We want to, and kids tilt towards one or the other. So they'll either have a growth mindset or they'll have a fixed mindset. What we want to do is nurture a growth mindset. So that comes around the language we learn. And it's things like, and it can take, like, it's about building. So it's things like, it's okay that you can't do it now. We put yet on the end of it. It's not that you can't do it, it's that you can't do it yet. And we have that conversation with them about muscularizing these parts of their brain, and how mistakes are really great because it's how you learn. So it's that conversation we were having earlier. Avoidance of structured tasks, is that because of anxiety? Are they avoiding structured tasks because of anxiety around how to do it? If they're structured tasks, we don't want to bring in too much structure before school when they're younger, because they're just not quite ready. How they discover and learn and grow is through play. So, okay, so they are at school avoiding structured tasks. So we just keep encouraging them, keeping in mind that the reason they're probably avoiding them is because they feel like they're not very good at them. So what we want to say is, it doesn't matter that you're not good at it. Doesn't matter how this task ends. It's about you having a go. And I know that you are really good at trying. And we just keep talking to them as though they are the kids we want them to be. We just keep doing that. So it is about the conversation, and it is about nurturing that growth mindset and that idea that they can change. And we validate. I know you don't want to do this because it doesn't feel whatever it is, whatever you can read in them. And I just want you to have a go, because I know that when you have a go, you can really do amazing things. I don't care how it ends. I want you to make as many mistakes as you can, because that's how you learn. So we put the focus back on that. Now, other ones, we've talked about separation, talked about tantrums, we've talked a lot about separation, peer relationships, anxiety. Oh, there's one here about behaviour, challenging behaviour. It depends what the challenging behaviour is. So parents who just tell kids to stop. So how to explain to parents that if a child is chewing their shirts or sucking their thumb, by telling them to stop doing that, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because if that is something that, and it might be out of habit, often it's to self-soothe. So it's difficult to know, but often those repetitive tactile behaviours are to self-soothe. So if the brain is feeling unsafe, that's what they'll do. By telling them to not do that, it's going to make the brain register more threat. So we have to say to the parents, you need something to replace it with. You can't ask them. It's like saying, stop thinking about red balloons. Don't think about it. The more you do that, the more you're going to think about red balloons. The more you tell them not to do it, the more they're going to feel anxious if it's connected to it, and the more they're going to feel the need to self-soothe. So what we need to do is help them feel soothed and safe. That's how we do it. So what's happening for you right now, we acknowledge, we validate, and we co-regulate, bring them back to calm. They're not doing it because they want to be doing it. They're doing it because it's a way that they can regulate and bring themselves back to calm. And then again, the work happens in the calm times. So we introduce breathing exercises that they can do instead. We introduce touch exercises. Hand on heart and breathing releases oxytocin. So we introduce these strategies. Another one is figure 8 breathing, touch. So if they're doing this tactile to self-soothe, let's introduce another one that they can use, which is more which is something that they can take right through to being grown-ups. So figure 8 breathing, if you imagine a sideways figure 8, but get them to do it on themselves. So get them to do it on their hand or on their arm. So we want to replace these behaviors. And what they do, and again, you have to do it when they're calm, is for the first belly of the, so I'll do it in the air. For the first belly of the 8, they breathe in for 3, hold for 1, out for 3. Same with hand on heart's another one. Put your hand on your heart. There are neurons in your heart. And when you touch, it releases oxytocin that can calm an anxious brain. So hand on heart and breathe strong, steady breaths, but they have to practice it when they're calm. They have to practice it because you have to set up that pathway in the brain. If you introduce these things for the first time when they're anxious, the brain won't be able to do it because the amygdala won't, it has no interest in calming down. So they might have to practice lots when they're calm. So introduce it when they're calm and then introduce it as a strategy for anxiety. You might, if they feel comfortable with your touch, you might say, I've got a special trick that can help calm your amygdala, that can help calm big feelings. And you do it on their arm or on their back. And when I do this, you breathe in and then you hold. And when I do this, you breathe out, and you might show them. And it's just something, it's one I give to adolescents a lot when I'm working with them, because it's something they can do under the desk when they're in exams. They can do it on the way to school, in the car. They can do it in the classroom. No one even knows what they're doing. But what you're also doing is you're setting up an association between the figure 8 touch and calm. So that will, when they do it enough, that will be enough to bring the brain back to going, okay, that's right. This is where we start to, do calm. Now,
Karen, we've got 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
And there was just that one with the COVID.
Yep.
They help parents to not project their anxiety about COVID onto their children.
Yeah. So I think there isn't enough information about how contagious anxiety is. So what we need to say to parents is, Your child will feel safe when they feel like you feel safe. They will catch your anxiety. Anxiety is very contagious. And your child is constantly looking to you for, am I safe? Now, you can be anxious about COVID. We can be as anxious as we want. But what we don't want is to pass it on to our kids. Now, the other thing to say to parents is we can have a conversation with kids about washing their hands and whatever they need to do. But parents need to communicate calm and safety. And that looks like, and I know we're safe. I know you're safe at kindy, or I know you're safe at school. I wouldn't be sending you if you weren't safe. So if a parent needs to have a conversation about the things that they need to do to protect themselves against anxiety, they also need to communicate safety and calm. What we also have to say to parents is, if your child is really okay with this, but if you send signals that it's not safe, your child will pick up on those so quickly, really quickly, and they'll read it in your face or in your gestures or in your reluctance to leave them. They will pick that up really quickly. So there are really only two options here. Is you can keep doing this, but your child will get anxious. They are going to catch your anxiety. Or we can help them feel calm, and that will come from you, because in the same way they can catch your anxiety, they will catch your calm. So it is a strong conversation, a loving conversation. It has to be really loving. Like, of course you're going to be anxious about it. I really get it. And this is new for us. And I really get why you're going to be anxious about your child, if it's related to what's happening at kindy. I really get it. And I want you to know that your child is really safe, and I'm going to make sure of it. I'm here. So that parent can let go when they know you're hanging on. And we need to give them that sense that we are hanging on to their child and that it is safe. And then we say, and your child needs to feel that from you, because they will catch your anxiety. And they won't just catch it about COVID. It'll start to generalize. So it's a really important thing. I've got a story that can help parents, actually, and I've got 3 minutes and I can tell it in 3 parents. I usually give this in my big talks, but there was a psychologist, Lawrence Leonard, not the singer Cohen, Lawrence Cohen, who he talks about his 8th grade science experiment, and he was looking at the fear recovery response in chickens. And what he did was he got a chicken and he stared it in the eye like a hawk would. So it got really scared and it played dead. He scared it. That was a freeze. So when there's no opportunity for fight or flight, we go to freeze. That chicken played dead. It took 2 minutes for that chicken to get back up. Then he got 2 chickens, stared them both in the eye like a hawk would, and they both went down, played dead. It took them 5 minutes to get up. So 1 chicken down took 2 minutes to get up. Both chickens down together took 5 minutes to get up. Then he got 1 chicken, stared it in the eye like a hawk would, while the other chicken was walking around the pen as though nothing was wrong. That chicken, he stared it in the eye, it went down and played dead. It got up after a few seconds, because here's what's happening. When there's 1 chicken down, it's looking for signs of safety and signs of danger. When there's no other chickens in the pen, there are no signs of safety, but there's no signs of danger, but there's no signs of safety either. So it will take a couple of minutes to get back up. When there's 2 chickens down, 1 chicken's looking at the other chicken going, oh, we must still be in danger because you must see something I can't see because you're still down. So I'm going to stay down too. And meanwhile, that chicken's looking at that chicken going, well, you must know something I don't know. So I'm going to stay down because we mustn't be safe yet. And they're doing this thing. And it takes 5 minutes for one of them to be brave enough to get back up. When there's 1 chicken down and 1 chicken walking around the pen happily, that down chicken looks over at that brave chicken and says, oh, well, you must know something I don't know because you seem fine and you're alive and you're safe and you're happy. So I think I must be okay too. And up it gets after a few seconds. Parents need to be the second chicken for their children. And you, as the adults who are taking the children, who are being handed the children, will need to be second chickens for the parents. So, and we need to be brave second chickens. So parents can either be down second chickens, or we can be brave second chickens. And parents will be looking to you for signs of safety as well. Kids who don't like being touched in big feelings, I just want to quickly get to this. Use gentle voices, use walking, take them away from the situation. I've just seen a question here about that. I just wanted to cover that quickly. There are other ways to do it, and just stay in connection distance, and remembering that it's going to take time. We ride the wave. It's like a storm. You can't talk a storm out of storming. You just have to ride it through. And finally, the one about snacks. I know it's time to go, but should we be forcing kids to eat snacks? We shouldn't. Kids have a good sense of when they're hungry and when they need to eat. And we really shouldn't be, we don't need to force them to eat. Sometimes kids just don't eat, either because they're not hungry or because they need that sense of, I'm different to you. I'm practically a grown-up, and you need to recognize that I'm practically a grown-up, and I just want you to notice my independence. So if we can let go of some of that, that takes away that need for them to prove their independence and their separateness from us in other ways. And the other thing is, we kind of want to nurture this idea that they can trust their own cues, and that they're able to respond and you know, take charge in that way. And it starts with little things like that. So it doesn't mean, you know, we want to encourage them when we can, but remembering that there might be something else going on underneath that, which might be a need for independence, or to prove independence or separateness, especially about age 2 or 3, or parent influence. And so we can give them a little bit. So that is our time. And I can see more questions coming in. But this one is around anxiety and joining play. We just go with them. We just support them along the way, same as we do. It all happens through relationship and safety first. So I suppose what I want to say is, know that the work is happening. You won't always see, just because you have the conversations or just because you do what you need to bring calm, doesn't mean it's going to happen straight away, because we're building brains and we're building humans, and it all takes time, and we're building neural pathways in the brain. So it's repetition, 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 and giving them the experiences and doing it through relationship and having the conversations that will give them the language to build those really strong foundations moving forward. And it all takes time, and we need to respect that. So thank you for the work you do.
Well, thank you very much, Karen. I think we can all give her a virtual clap, put on some thumbs ups and things. Yes, thank you for taking on all our questions and giving it all individual attention. And I said to you before, like, I used my big pages this morning to make notes. Well, this was now, so there's a few notes going on there. Thank you very much for everything you've done and for spending the whole day with Hector.
It's a pleasure. It's, you know, I just feel like if you can just, the work that you do with young kids, it is foundational, and it is, you know, literally building humans. So thank you for everything you do. And you know, I just want to validate how important it is. There is nothing more important than the work you're doing. There just isn't.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So you've got until 3 o'clock for your next session. And lastly, tonight will be the wine and cheese and lucky draw and things. So Karen, are you finished, or do you have another one?
I'm done now. That's it from me.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for having me and for inviting me to speak. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you know, the adjustment around doing it like this it's not my favorite way to present, but I expect it's, you know, we do this because of the human connection, and it's difficult when it's online. But thank you for coming and giving up a Saturday to do it anyway. I'm very grateful.
Good.
Yeah.
Anything
Okay.
else from anyone else? No? There's some lovely comments in there for you.
Yeah, thank you. It just means so much. It's really, it takes a village. Oh, thank you. Thanks. It really does. It takes a village. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to kick you all out, and I'll see you somewhere in the world.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye, Karen. Thank you.
Bye.